Energy is inherently a part of everything we do in our lives, but one of the least understood things.
I can see a future where there is limitless and free energy. And that's a pretty beautiful world to live in.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Power to the People. Derek and Rob. I know we've hit EVs quite a bit, and I wanted to start the conversation on kind of EVs again, but in a little bit of a different mindset. I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing across the EV market is like this critical mass infrastructure need of like chargers across the board. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of EV is like people don't know where to charge, how to charge, what's the rate of charging, but also like who are kind of some of the leaders in charging? Because I know we've been at it building a lot of charging ports, and like I would love to learn from you guys. Like, how did that come about? Like, how do you just get into the charging space, period?
Bro, are we just going to skip right over the fact that there's some fresh cuts happening on this podcast?
Dude, we got some fresh cuts. I think Rob's got a cut.
Fresh cuts.
Looking pretty good.
Have you ever shaved your head? I think this is a more interesting question here. No, I'm just kidding. But Rob, have you ever shaved your head? Have you ever buzzed it?
Not that short, not like that. No, but I buzzed it down pretty short, but nothing
Like enough to feel the breeze?
not like you guys.
If you feel the breeze, that's what.
Yeah.
You still have nice,
I've gotten
thick, cute hair. So you
I've
get to
gotten
keep
it
it.
pretty short, but
Now, no,
it's
maybe
cold,
a better
too.
question for Rob is: has it ever been super long? I know you had your hippie
Oh, yeah.
days.
Oh, that.
Oh, yeah.
You
Okay,
had
yeah.
super
What's
long-
the longest you've ever had it,
Oh,
Rob?
it's been down to my
Shoulders.
ass.
No way,
What?
dude! Please share a photo.
Oh yeah.
We need the.
Oh
we
yeah,
need
I've
the
had
long.
crazy long hair. I've had I can.
We need the
I'll try
Grateful
to
Dead
find some
Rob.
photos. There's not a lot of photos of it, but I think I could find one.
Is that when you were with the fire breathers in the woods of the southeast?
Definitely fire breathers and living in that, like sleeping on a floor in Birmingham, Alabama, just living with like crazy circus freaks. Yeah, it was.
So
good.
Steve, just a heads up, and I'm sorry to derail this one, but
No, let's derail it. I like this.
There needs to be an episode of Rob and Derek's highlights of their past, because there's some wild stories in there, bro.
Well, no
Wild
time like the present. Honestly, I'm curious about this hair thing. So I had a roommate in college who had super long hair too, and we shared a bathroom, and he had this like shampoo in there, and it was like mane and tail, and I was like, dude, what's this mane and tail about? And I was like,
tail.
yeah, and he was like,
Next
dude, this
level.
is for horses, and I was like, yeah, but like. You're a dude
You're not a
with,
horse,
with
bro.
long hair, yeah. And he was like,
Weird.
"Works the same, man. This is the secret."
Maybe he's just kind of
Okay, so that's a super hot story right there.
So what's the secret to the long hair, Rob? Like, how do you manage that?
Bro, he had
right.
bugs and straw and stuff in his hair. He
It
was
got
sleeping on the
gnarly,
floor in
yeah.
Alabama.
It wasn't.
Was it dreads?
It eventually dreaded out, and it was ridiculous, but like it was crazy. Yeah, and I eventually had to cut it all because it was so heavy and just freaking matte. It was ridiculous.
Probably smelled
But
good.
It's definitely I definitely had at the time.
You were putting some tea tree oil in
had
there and
crazy
whatever, some
oils. I had
patchouli.
a couple girlfriends that were like, "We're gonna do some things and get some stuff in there, get some liniments and some fresh herbal
Some patchouli.
scents." And I stayed away from the patchouli, but definitely had some kind of like herbal.
I would have thought you went hard on the patchouli, bro.
Definitely not.
Do you have
Not
long hair,
the guy.
Derek? Before it started going away?
like
'Cause that's where I'm at.
My longest was as a like 9-10-year-old surf rat with just a gnarly long like 70s bowl cut. Like it was 80s, but I mean it was super straight. Bleached blonde, not sun bleached blonde bowl cut. But no, I've never had it long like Rob.
It was pretty crazy. I mean, there was a moment where I wear it pretty frequently, like in like double Viking braids.
That's sick. Dude, if you could bring back the war braids, I would do anything to have you rocking war braids, dude.
It was a moment for sure. It was probably a few months where I had the long enough, and it was like a horse's mane. Like my hair was super thick, and like it was definitely I could have used horse
Is
shampoo.
it curly like Ayla's and
it was like Ayla's, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot like Ayla's hair.
That's a dope look, dude. I say it's timeless, which is a headband, a bandana headband with war braids coming out.
War braids.
Like that to me, you could wear that with a suit and look super cool. You could wear it with your hippie sandals, whatever you're running around in. Like, dude, that's the look, bro. If I could do that, I would.
You know what I find crazy about just that whole, like, when you grow your hair out for a while, I've never grown it that long, obviously, but like I've grown it pretty decent. And it's always it's the transition and the contrast. Like I was just feeling, hey, let's just shave it all off. And it's weird, like there's a complete different shift in not just like the personality side, but people are like, whoa, who's this guy?
Whoa.
And it's like just hair.
I have this weird, so every time that I've shaved my head down, I've done like some major, like big stuff in my life. And it's almost like, the opposite of the Samson and Delilah story from the Bible. It's like where they cut off his hair and he got all weak and like, and for me, it's like I buzz it and all of a sudden I get all like in my groove, and so it kind of happened this time where I'm like, we're working on the next version of Mint, like going like full blown next level, like, our biggest dreams, and they're all kind of accessible here. And I'm like, dude, it's time. I got to get back in my groove here. So we'll see if it's just placebo or not. It doesn't matter. I guess the outcome's all that matters.
I mean, I was out in the field this week filming with the crews, and like what's so interesting is like part of the reason why I cut it all off was like if you go from hard hat to hat or whatever,
your dude's jacked, bro.
It looks the same.
Jack's
looks the same. But one of the
not
things
Rob though, you got that like messy cool vibe. You can do it. You can go from hat to hard hat, and it would still be fine. But like, yeah,
I could do it. Yeah. The reason I cut it really was I was surfing a lot and it got so heavy, and literally when I cut it all off, I kind of felt like similar to what you're saying, a little bit different, but similar in that I cut it all off and I had like this renewed strength because it was literally weighing me down. And like when I cut it all off, I felt like I was floating. Like I literally felt like I was floating above the planet. Like, and I was like, what is happening? I could run faster. I was like, what is happening?
Totally. You know what else to me? It's also a bit of like an ego check too, like where I have to go back into like because it's a weird, when you buzz your head, it's like you're all of a sudden instantly look totally different to yourself. You're like, whoa, I don't feel right or whatever. I feel lighter and like more athletic or whatever, and just kind of in the zone. But it helps me realize like I've got to make it about my spirit and my words and my my hopes and my intentions, and not about like how polished I look or whatever. So it's just kind of a thing. I think there's something cool. There's a spiritual thing to hair, man. You read about the dreadlock, the Rastas and stuff, and like they think they hold a lot of energy in their hair, and
totally. I mean, look at Native American culture and like, I mean, they don't never cut their hair. It's like a thing. There's spirit in that hair. Yeah. So it's kind of both ways. Yeah. You're kind of like, there is something in there.
But there's a rebirth too that I think's cool about it, bro. Like I've talked to Rastas that like thought it was going to be the end of the world for them to cut their dreads, and then they did, and they're like, bro, I'm a different person, and it's a different vibe, And I think it's all good. I don't think that in the universe, like in the field of like energy, there's a right and wrong. I think it's just more of like where you're at, and are you present with what's going on. Enough to like be in it, and not just be stuck in a paradigm that's like I have to have long hair or I have to look a certain way, and just being like, go for it.
Yeah. Well, in this time of year for me, I always love like I feel like this time of year's transition. I mean, it is a seasonal transition, but also like it's where I like to shift a lot of things in my life, and that's kind of that catalyst where you're like, ooh, okay, now what else are we gonna shift? What else are we gonna change?
Yeah, man, that was good talk. I want to throw it over to you guys too before we get started, just to set the stage for our audience. I tell you, there's not two people that I enjoy working with and sharing creative ideas with more than you two guys. You guys are awesome. So let's kick this thing off and create some less comical content here. But like, what's up with charging, Rob? Like, how did you get the? I have not ever. It was one of the things in this company that like we didn't either do totally collaboratively, or that wasn't already like a spark of an idea that one of us had that we had together and came together on. You kind of like drove this push into EV charging, and I know it came from some relationships and stuff, but I was never like let's go be charging infrastructure guys. That was not on my radar for a number of reasons, but just, and it's become like a big part of our process and our kind of fundamental like approach to the market. Maybe Rob, tell us like where the idea was born from and like what it means to us. And then, maybe dive into some of what Steve was asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it did kind of come from this organic evolution of electrification and the work we were doing with General Motors, and the fact that, we all drive EVs and there's this momentum around the electrification, but it's in terms of like where it originated in my thinking and like how I'm thinking about electrification and reduction of emissions and all of that and decarbonization, all those things. What I found kind of saw happening with EVs in particular was it was bringing the idea of thinking about energy and managing energy into people's everyday lives in a way that no other tech was able to do. Definitely not solar, definitely not battery storage.
Almost like a commercialization of a B2C infrastructure that, or maybe more accurately said, kind of a B2B concept that has an application that goes B2C, or at least pulls the consumer into the conversation around holistically controlled, managed, decentralized energy.
Yeah. I mean, people and then businesses that have fleets. I mean, when your vehicle becomes an electrified asset, it changes everything. It really does. Like, no longer are you thinking about vehicles as this thing you go buy fuel from and it's part of the fossil fuel infrastructure, and you've got, as a personal driver, as just a normal person, or a part of a business, part of a fleet manager, all of a sudden you're thinking now, how do I power all my vehicles? How do I get from A to B? I need electricity. How do I get that electricity? It comes from the grid. How does that get charged? It's no longer like, oh, I look at the gas prices and it's $1.50 a gallon and I pay this many gallons. And now I'm like, okay, I got to charge my vehicles. When am I charging them? Why is it cheaper when I charge in the middle of the night, in the day? What's happening? Like, what's going on? All of a sudden you're starting to think about energy in a way that most people never have ever. Most businesses, most people. And so EVs really bring that into your everyday lives, like unlike anything else before it.
So let's be candid here. Were you first compelled by the concept of how the EVs are a tentacle into the everyday person's life, where we work at scale, commercially, industrially? This is a way to like have impact in the everyday person's life, get them more engaged in the concept of why clean energy, as decentralized clean energy, as kind of a holistic approach. Was that the first thing that compelled you, or was it the opportunistic approach of like, we have some partners that really needed some help there, and there was the business case to dive in?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, I definitely was opportunistic, like, hey, this is a pathway to getting people to think about how they generate energy, how they manage energy, and like that is going to be, I don't want to, it's not necessarily a Trojan horse, but it is like a pathway, a thinking pathway, a strategic pathway into thinking about how you generate and manage energy, which is where our kind of real bread and butter business, where our real opportunity lies, is getting on-site generation, getting on-site storage, energy storage. The EV infrastructure is almost like a conduit. It's almost like a new part of the.
So you saw it as like a lever into paradigm shift, right? Getting awareness into the broader concept.
It is, and because solar and even and storage to some extent, and really, especially when it's attached to solar, are so like, they're really invisible to the everyday person or business. It sits on your roof. It sits in a carport. It's not.
It's inert.
It's inert, right? It's not like part of your everyday tangible lifestyle, or and vehicles are so much a part of everything that goes on. It's like, how do you get from A to B? Trucks, vehicles, moving people, moving stuff. Like, it's a different type of distribution. And this kind of realization that EVs are just batteries on wheels, that whole thing, it just kind of like flips everything on its head. You're like, holy shit, there's energy assets everywhere now. Like everyone's got to think about energy because we're driving around in these.
Somebody said it right way back when. I heard somebody say that, a Tesla. Well, this is early days, when the kind of the mass adoption was just starting, and they were like, it's a smartphone on wheels. Is really what a Tesla is,
Yeah, well, it's a smartphone. It's a smart battery phone. It's a smart battery phone. Like it's a little energy asset. It's like
that's smart though, right? And then you're kind of leaning into the near future, which is this connection between the everyday use of the average driver. I think we use cars as part of a representation of our identity, right? There's we all know the story of the person that can't hardly afford their rent, but they drive a really nice brand new car. It's because it's part of their identity. And I think you're talking about connecting humans, everyday people, to the bigger picture around clean energy, decentralized energy. But then when we start talking about the bidirectionality of that use of that energy, right? So when that car is parked, it's not always just soaking up the energy. It may in some cases have the opportunity to make itself some money, make that asset make some money, by providing some short-term power to that site wherever it is hooked up, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that, where you get a little bit more interactive, like that the average person is now participating in an ecosystem, a clean energy ecosystem.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's all of a sudden everyone has a chance to participate in this massive ecosystem that is the grid, that is energy distribution. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just yesterday or maybe a couple days ago, the California Energy Commission just greenlit a project to have curbside vehicle to grid charging in California. So there's a company called It's Electric. They're out of the East Coast. They're going to be building vehicle to grid, they call it V2G technology, that's going to be along sidewalks, just curbside parking in major cities, San Francisco, LA, wherever, Sacramento. And you could literally park your car, plug in, and then you'll get a notification on your phone. Do you want to give energy back to the grid today? There's a peak demand event. Do you want to make a few bucks? And you can say opt in, yes, or no, I need my.
Rob, are those also charging stations, or are they only just to grid?
Charging, no, both bidirectional. So yeah, you can sit there and charge, and if you need your charge, you don't want to opt in, great. But if you do want to opt in, you have a little bit of extra charge, throw it into the grid, make a few bucks. Everyone can do that now. It'll be publicly available vehicle to grid charging, and that's going to be proliferated across businesses.
I wonder if there's a future where you've got a paid off EV. And you just leave it parked in one of those things full time, right? You just basically you paid off your vehicle, you used it for the 4 or 5 years, 6 years, whatever, to pay it off, and now it's just you own a battery. You own the way we use batteries commercially, like we are out putting batteries into industrial sites, big commercial sites, so that we can do this kind of energy arbitrage where we're pulling juice into the battery when it's least expensive and then providing it against grid charges when they're the most expensive. I wonder if you just had a paid off asset just sitting there, you're like, I can just leave it here. I ride my bike most of the time and it's just constantly working. It's like somehow there's some software that's constantly arbitraging.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're getting revenue out of your vehicle. I'm kidding. I'm tongue in cheek.
No, but I think
it is. You own a battery at that point. Is what
you do.
It's
you
what's
own
interesting.
A battery, yeah, and that's the thing. That's kind of the next level. The aha moment is like, yes, these are batteries on wheels, and they do have this incredible capacity to help the grid, to help our community en masse at large deal with energy and peak demand and the reliability of the grid itself. They really are. When you're talking about thousands, I mean, my truck has a 130 kilowatt hour battery in it. That's the equivalent of 10 power walls, like the power walls that Tesla's installing at people's houses. I've got 10 of those in my truck.
Well, I think
from a fleet perspective too, like that's where it's going to change things. Is like if you think about like you have a fleet of 10 vehicles and maybe you only send out 5 on a given day, you could pool that energy from the vehicles that aren't being used and deploy it.
This is exactly what's happening at a very large food bank in the Northern California area that we're working with as their owner's engineer currently. They are switching from the traditional diesel truck delivery, last mile delivery, right? So the big semi trucks come in which are now becoming electrified as well. But they come in, deliver food. There's a cold storage facility. That food gets sorted and packaged up, and then it goes out and gets distributed to more local users, right? To feed the hungry, or provide food for those that don't have access. And they're transitioning their 15, 16 box trucks, last mile box trucks from diesel to EV or to electric. And, we're working on how to build out that charging infrastructure in a way at which they know when and how those trucks are going to be used, exactly how many miles they're going to drive, how to utilize those both from a standpoint of cost savings to the food bag itself, right, over the life of the vehicle, or their operational cost matrix for the year, but also when and how best to use that energy, and also considering bidirectional, right? Can those parked vehicles be there? Some percentage of them be there to support. There also is a large battery system that being built into this facility, but also just kind of what does that look like? And it becomes very dynamic. And I think people forget that there's three primary points to energy, right? It's sourcing, it's then transmission, and then it's usability, right? And one thing that we have had a tough time with is the more finite transportation of energy. And that's what makes gasoline or diesel or these liquid fuels so compelling, is because they can be moved around. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden EVs, we forget, yes, it's moving us around as human beings, but you're also moving energy around. It's stored energy. And so you now have a different utilization of that energy because you're mobilizing clean energy. Whereas before up until this point, it's been incredibly dependent upon the transmission and the distribution lines, right? So now we have mobilized energy in a new way. And I think that there's a future that we haven't even fully contemplated yet of what that looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you talk about the scale of what kind of amount of energy we're moving around, and you talk about fleets of trucks like mine or bigger, you're talking about multiple megawatt hours, if not gigawatt hours of energy that's being moved around. I mean, just in California alone, where there's thousands of electric vehicles.
See a future where the big tech companies, right, where you've got thousands of butts and seats at desks, where the cars are sitting in the parking lot all day long. And let's just say over time, maybe there's an incentive through that company for folks to go buy EVs, but you've got this, let's say 20%, 30% of that parking lot has got EVs in it that are sitting there all day long. And yet that company knows that from 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock on, their energy costs go through the roof. Could they be pulling some energy from those vehicles, which have plenty, to get those folks home, and offsetting, as you said earlier, Rob, the peak demand charges of their bill, or maybe working with the utility in a demand response capacity where it's just helping to flux that power back into the grid to soften some of those tight points on the deliverability of energy.
It's already happening. And of all school buses, perfect example. They sit there all night. They're charging. They're sitting there with these full batteries. Take advantage of that. And even peak hours right after school is over, the buses have come back at 4 or 5 p.m. That's exactly when the utilities need it. Just drain those things. The schools are making money by selling at a capacity to the grid. They're helping the grid. They're helping resiliency. And then they've got these electric zero emissions buses that they're moving people around in. There's so many wins in there. It's kind of crazy.
I'd like to take this moment just to share, I think it's important that this group here, the leadership here at Mint, and those that may be on this podcast, remember to remind people that this is not a political issue, right? I think that we have seen everything under the sun in the last 10 years become politicized, right? Where it's either you're on this team or that team. And somehow they find a way to make an issue either this or that. And I think that we need to remember that the electrification it's just better. It's not to say that we don't fully appreciate oil and gas and coal and all the things that got this society to where it is today. This is just technologically better. It's a better functionality and use of energy. And so I think that I want to make sure that people out there that maybe are on a little bit more of the old school perspective, or maybe have a strong belief in the foundational elements that made America a strong economy, over the last 100 years, that we're not giving up on that. What we're saying is this is just the next step in the right direction. Sure, there's a lot of data that shows that it's environmentally better, right? But let's just say that it's better in general, better for the user, better for the deliverability, better for the transport. It's just better. And that this doesn't need to be a political issue. Like you're either a greenie and you believe in electrification, or you're old school, red, state kind of mindset around oil and gas or coal and gas. And so it's not that. And we're starting to see really red states full on adoption of EV because of a lot of reasons, right? Maybe we can get into some of that at some point, but I just want to remind people we can start dropping the politics, dude, and just look at what's a better technology.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like it's an easier way to get around Rob, you mentioned in a previous podcast, like the range anxiety was the wrong problem to attack. And that is, if you have enough charging infrastructure, it's not a concern. Like I'm sure there was range anxiety with gasoline back in the day too. It was like there was can I get to the next gas
100%.
station? Yeah. And so it's like that's just the natural maturity of any new market that's actually developing, and specifically in transportation. Transportation's like, I think, the area where we can move the needle the most. If you were to go more the decarbonization route, like transportation is the one that takes up a lot of that. It's the everyday transportation. Yeah. When it comes to the infrastructure side, I'm curious on this one because I think there's a lot of education around this. Everybody sees electric charging stations. They'll see a Tesla one, they'll see a Charge Point one, they'll see, Electrify America, they'll see all these ones. It's really confusing for the user. Like you go up, you don't know how it works. Does this plug work with this plug? Like I think there's a little bit of like a education that needs to go around it. So
there is.
I think everybody was used to one plug, and now everything's starting to go. It's called the NACS one, which if you have a Tesla, that's what they use. Yeah. Rob, why is that one different, better? I mean, how do you make sense of that part of it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's just going to take time for people to get. I mean, it's kind of like this new tech, and it keeps changing, and which is kind of the way it goes with new tech, and it's constantly innovating. But Tesla's charging technology, that adapter, that NACS, the North American Charging Standard, the one that Tesla uses, now being adopted, and it is sort of been standardized around that. So I think most of the manufacturers are moving in that direction. I think by the end of next year, most EVs will come equipped standard with that NACS charger. And over probably 2 to 3 years, maybe more than that, but most of the charging stations will also, I know we are doing that kind of sort of quickly, is transitioning from the old CCS type connector, which is most other vehicles, transitioning to that NACS. The NACS.
Let's talk about it. The NACS is the one that it's not a circle. It's a little bit of a rounded triangle. Right. Yeah. And just so people understand what we're talking about. And so what, obviously standardizing the plug-in, like this is, we're talking about consumer level stuff. Like, I think your point's great, Steve. Like I personally know that we were early adopters. My family was early adopters of EV, I think a little bit ahead of like kind of the broader, adoption that we're seeing now. And one of the challenges we had was like, these fundamental questions: where do we charge? What kind of chargers? How many are there? Like, we have so much more ubiquity now, but I still think that that's a question for people. It's like, how simple is this? Like, how much is this going to affect my life?
Yeah, it is really pretty simple when it comes down to it, which is another reason why the NACS, the Tesla charger, has become so popular and is standardized around, is because it is so simple. A lot of the other charging, especially CCS, the ones that all the vehicles really have, it is that circle, and then there's another part of it. So when you go to charge at your house, you're plugging in like half, and you'll see like in your port where you charge in, there's kind of like 2 sections, and you plug in the top, and then if you want to supercharge at one of these public fast charging, you have to add this other component, and so you have to plug in this larger device. And so Tesla, everything is in one. It's just simplified, standardized. Every plug you plug into is the exact same, whether it's 300 kilowatts charging, or at home level 2, 10 kilowatts. It's all the same plug. You don't have to mess with that. The really cool thing about Tesla and what they've really done, this is still coming, is with a Tesla, it's based on telemetry, which means you just have to plug your thing in, your car in. it all happens automatically. You've got your credit card or your bank account, whatever, registered to your vehicle. You just plug in, the charger knows it's your vehicle, and everything happens in the cloud, basically. It charges your card, you plug in, you take your plug out, you drive away, and it charges you and you see your receipt.
So here's a question. I'm a consumer and I go, how do I know that the guys that own those chargers, whether it's got the name of some big company on the side of it, I don't know who actually is owning or managing those chargers. How do I know they're not just charging me a dollar a mile, for charge? Like, how, as a consumer, how do I know that I'm not just getting hosed? And I'm curious what your take is here on. I mean, we know that there's data, but like maybe walk the average person through that.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to take. There's a little bit of a learning curve because you've got to sort of change your thinking around dollar per mile is now. So you have to convert electricity into miles, right? Like miles per gallon. It is a little bit of a learning curve.
Don't most of the apps now talk about what that station's charging before you plug in? You can look and see what that charging station is charging per kilowatt hour.
They do,
of energy.
Yeah, and you can compare and you can definitely see hey, this charger's 56 cents a kilowatt hour. That one over there is 52. Just like people drive around, they're like, that gas station's $4, this one's $3.50. You can do that, but understanding whether or not, I think you were asking, maybe not, but asking, how do I know that what they're charging me is market? How do I know they're not charging me $1.50 or 56 cents a kilowatt hour? How do I know that that's market and they're not gouging me? And that, that's where the whole kind of understanding energy comes into play. And that's why it's forcing people to start thinking about that. Unlike gasoline, where you go and you basically, you're kind of at the whim of the gas station owners and the fossil fuel industry. Like, you have no real participation in that ecosystem. You can't drive down energy fossil fuel prices.
In fact, it's exclusionary. I mean, at the end of the day, gas stations, if you notice, are all within a penny or two of each other per gallon. That's set, intentionally, right? And it's also, there's some other external pressures on those guys, but you're never going to go into a town where you see a gas station, a mile away that's literally 25% cheaper. It just doesn't happen, right?
Not gonna happen.
I'm curious if there are any of those tech bros listening out there, build an app that's doing a snapshot at any moment in time of the best rates being provided in charging stations in any given area. I mean, I'm assuming somebody's already thinking of that, where you can just go onto an app and go, oh shoot, if I just drove a mile down the road, I'd save $10 on my charge.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that on I think there's Charger Plus. There's there's a few apps that you can take advantage of that will give you a little bit more access, and there's the in-network apps that tell you they're going to push you towards their chargers. If you're a Tesla driver, it's going to drive you towards Tesla supercharging stations. It would be kind of cool to have some kind of third-party objective viewpoint on that, where you could go in and be like, yeah, that charger is 10% more expensive, so I'm going to take the extra drive. Hopefully there is more standardization. That's kind of what we're pushing for. But right now, sometimes you are forced to kind of stay in-app. Let's say if you've got some kind of subscription with an in-app. I know my wife drives a Hyundai Ioniq. She got 3 years of free charging with Electrify America. So she's going to charge at Electrify America stations regardless of the price and where it is. She's going to go out of her way to go to those Electrify America stations. And so there's still a lot of that happening. There's still a lot of jockeying for position and who's going to own the majority share of the market. That's still kind of happening. But I think there's always going to be public charging. I think as the infrastructure grows and there's more and more cars on the road and people are doing different things with electric vehicles, there's always going to be public charging. But what's really more interesting to me and our business and what we're doing is how you charge at home and at your business and at work. That's really where it starts to get a lot more interesting, because you have that agency now. You as a business owner, you as a homeowner, you as just a person now has that next level of agency. And we were talking about bidirectionality and how that impacts the distribution of energy. That is so much more interesting to me. I know we need infrastructure and public infrastructure, but I really love the idea of helping people and businesses understand how they can make choices around how they use and manage energy. That's super interesting.
You're touching on something that fundamentally it matters most to me at the deepest level, which is individual choice, sovereignty, agency, these kind of terms where I think we've inadvertently subscribed as people to a complex that's being driven by larger movers, right? Whether it's the educational system or it's the fuel, it's the oil and gas industry. And if you look at that, that's a global monopoly manipulation of markets, healthcare, all the things that we interface with on a day-to-day basis, that we have really over time slowly lost that agency or that freedom of choice without realizing it. And this is a moment in time that the use of energy, which is, I think, and Rob makes a great point on this, one of the most fundamental elements of existence, is now being put back into the hands of the people. That's the nature of the name of this channel, right? Power to the people. It's certainly a got multiple entendres there, but it that's what we're talking about here, is how to create a truly more democratized system, if lack of a better term, for something that's so inherent in all of our lives, where there is no super conglomerate consortium that's controlling how we have to live our lives in the way that we use energy. We're saying it's not totally like wide open for every human being right now, but it's getting closer. And I think some of the theories and concepts that are being worked on here are bringing it closer and closer to reality, where the individual has some energy sovereignty. Might be a good term for it.
Well, and everything's been top down. If you think about like the way gas stations work, right? You build a gas station, then you go, cool, cars will come here. Like that's always, it's like, we're going to dictate how the user is going to be. And I think we're actually starting, like the best companies we see nowadays, what do? They listen to the consumer, and instead they build for the consumer itself, and they listen to what the consumer wants and does. And then they react to that and they end up being successful. And what I find interesting, and Rob, you and I were having this conversation yesterday, was where will the user actually go charge? Like, do they want to go pull into these like charging stations to just like go charge at a traditional, gas station but electric idea? Or do they want to park at a grocery store and just plug in while they're going to do their thing? That fundamentally, that's a discussion for like, how do users interact? Okay, cool. What's the easiest way for somebody to interact? Now we're thinking in those terms rather than, well, let's just go build something over here and those people with the EVs will just pull up and charge here. Like, I think it was part of that transition of like getting people comfortable with EVs. But I think the future of EV infrastructure is going to be, where do people want to charge, not where do they have to charge?
Totally. Yeah. And we very intentionally, our charging, the ones that we've developed, have intentionally been co-located at amenity-rich locations. So grocery store, laundromat, gym, fast food, or just good local eateries,
malls, strip malls, strip malls, I think.
Places where you're already going to go for a few minutes, park your car. Hey, I'm parking my car, take advantage of a quick charge. I'll get a few miles. So I think that's one other thing that I just want to say for the consumer is like, it isn't about charging from 0 to 100. Remember, like sometimes you go to the gas station, you're like, I'll take $5. Well, it used to be $5 and it gets you a couple gallons. Used to be. That's the same thing now. Like you can charge for 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes you charge is often the most charge you're going to get relative to the entire charge. So if you're at a charging station for 10 minutes, you're going to get 20, 30, 40% of your charge. And then the rest of the time you're there, it's a lot slower. It's more of a trickle charge. So jumping in, getting a bite to eat, going to the grocery store for 15, 20 minutes, you're actually going to get a significant amount of charge, definitely plenty to get you home and onto the next thing. So it makes sense to, while you're, might as well. And I think if there's like it depends on where you are and state to state, but like in California, if you're getting charged anything around 50 cents a kilowatt hour, it's pretty much parity with gasoline in terms of dollar per mile.
So cost parity exists. Now, here's an interesting one, right? So we have gotten used to the idea that as we're standing filling up our tank, let's just say it's an average of 7 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. We're a captive audience. They figured out a while back to put in convenience stores with all of our healthiest things, tobacco, sugar, and processed food, right? All waiting there for us. And I think half the time people go in there and buy stuff because they're bored. They're just standing there breathing the gasoline fumes, and they're like, "I'm just going to get something. I'm going in to get water. Oh, but by the way, I bought a bag of Doritos and some Skittles."
Get your Slurpee.
Here's what you just said though: is that when was anybody ever thinking that I can fill up my gas tank while going to the grocery store? That's new. Okay, well, how about this? I'm going to fill up my gas tank while I go do a quick workout in the gym, or while I buy some flowers for my wife, or while I go down the list. This is all the new paradigm, which is people have been complaining about, well, it takes 20, 30, 40 minutes to charge my car. And I go, hey, in the 10 minutes it took to fill up your gas tank, you were captive to a bunch of crap you don't want or need, versus the 20 minutes maybe it takes to charge your car to get through the rest of the day. You actually have a broader array of things that are better for you to go do. And so I think, we're creating more amenity space around chargers where there's benches and a relaxing environment. There's not the smell of gasoline, but typically they're co-located with better choices for us as human beings to interact, to spend our time. And so I just think that from and to is from a stinky gas station with Snickers bars to a shopping center where I can get some things done. Maybe I tend to charge while I buy my groceries for the evening, right? For dinner or whatever. Or like you said, when I go to the gym, that stuff makes sense to me. That if you go back 20 years ago, what if you could get gas while going to the gym? People would go, what?
Yeah.
How's that work?
And that's mainly based on to actually put in a gas station, there's a lot of work that has to be done in order to be able to put one in, to dig up everything. Like there was a lot of health side of things of actually constructing those. EV construction, a little bit infrastructure construction is a lot easier. And the other thought that I had, like take this a step further, going back to the bidirectional concept, what if you could get paid to go to the gym? What if you could get paid to go grocery shopping? Like what if you could offset your groceries because you're putting power back into the grid? Maybe you don't need a charge, but you're like, screw it. I'll make some money while I'm actually going in the grocery store and grabbing my stuff. Now you got those bananas for free, man.
Yeah. It's the amount of the next level of like choices and agency and participation, and like it's totally, it really is flipping the old model on its head in so many ways. I can see, there being a point, where you've got, imagine like some of these larger malls where 70-80% of the parked vehicles are electric and they're all plugged in. You all of a sudden have these massive batteries, massive, like multiple megawatt hours of battery that the grid can call upon. And shopping centers become energy assets and help keep the grid reliable, resilient, more functional for everyone. And it's literally just because more people are driving electric vehicles.
And a step even in that direction, but just different is, think of your local barber who's got their shop in that strip mall, or the local sandwich guys, or whatever it is, right? All of a sudden, they've got an increase to that captive audience that's so hard to get in a retail situation. It's so hard to get people to stop and pay attention. And so it's this, I love the symbiosis of it, right? That the reason I want to stop at those chargers is so I can go get, have a broad array of things I can do or buy or see. And then you've got the other side of it, which is that retail center has a better, that people are stopping for a different reason, but now getting access to their vendors, to their, to these retail stores. And it's good for everybody. It's good for the economy. It's good for business. That doesn't really exist in the gas, traditional ICE engine vehicles. It's just its own lane, which is you stop at a gas station and you can get a drink, but it's, and in fact, I used to know a bunch of guys in Texas that owned a lot of gas stations. They made so much more money on the convenience than they did on the gas. The whole point of having the gas station was so you could have convenience. Again, we're creating a more horizontal and symbiotic environment by having chargers in these locations.
Totally.
It's just a better, again, you start looking at the layers on the cake and it's just a better thing. It's not about, do I hate gas? No, not at all. Do I think we should keep doing it when we have a better technology? No, it's better,
Yeah.
When I had these, this guy walked up to me when I was at one of our sites, and he goes, "Hey, what are you guys doing here? What are you guys building?" And I was like, "Well, put an energy system on the roof of this whole thing. He goes, no way, really? And I was like, yeah, it's to, really offset the grid, provide power to people who, to try and curb these costs that just seem to keep going up. And like, how do we build more resiliency into the grid? And he goes, man, that's so awesome. This is so cool. And I was like, yeah. And also the nice part is like, these flat roofs on top, they're out of sight, out of mind. You're not suddenly like building all these things where like you're taking more real estate, you're taking more land. We're taking the already built environment and we're optimizing it even more. And the consumer doesn't know any different, but they're going to see it on the other end. It'll be like right on the top of the roof. They still go to the grocery store the same way. They go to the strip mall the same way. And they just don't know that the entire roof becomes its own energy center, which is so cool.
So cool.
Yeah, and one thing I like to remind people too is that the problem has shifted a little bit, or it's expanded, in that it used to be that it started out that clean energy, let's just say solar as an example, was a like to have thing. It was done by people who believed that it was better for the environment. Then it moved into a stage of adoption, which was, it makes economic sense, right? There's a strong investment case for it, right? It's I save enough money to pay this thing off and make money with a good yield on my investment, right? And now it's moving into a new phase that all three stack up, but a new phase, which is the grid itself. It's certainly here in California is fragile, and we are running up against the chance of rolling blackouts, brownouts, and God forbid, long-term failure of the grid, which is catastrophic to all of our lives. And by embedding these decentralized energy generation projects into this grid itself, we are starting to buffer some of that challenge, right? So we're actually working at scale to protect the average Californian from all the deleterious effects of grid breakdown, right? And so there's that, to me, is a mission. Like, I'm personally like committed to the mission of keeping people safe, keeping people in hospital. Now hospitals have good backup systems, but let's say old folks homes that are on breathing apparatus or whatever, or the fact that if your grid goes down for a few weeks, there's chaos and anarchy in the streets. I mean, it's bad, right? So, food supplies fall apart, all of that. So there's this new problem that's arisen, which is this demand for power. A lot of it's just that we use more power. A lot of it's AI and data centers and all the things. But at the end of the day, we're fighting against a rising tide that's not being slowed down in any way, which is energy consumption. And not fighting against it, helping to buffer what will be eventually a grid failure, because we just cannot upgrade the grid fast enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just to tie EVs into that, it's, a way to, give some of that power to the people at the grid edges. You've got now everyone in their individual house has a chance to participate in that resiliency over the entire grid. But also in terms of economics, the same thing goes for EVs. Like, I think people drove EVs, like you said, like you're early adopters for maybe more mission reasons than economic. But the fact is, driving an EV is more cost effective for you long term. You're going to be saving a ton of money. The cost of ownership for EVs is insanely lower than cost of ownership for an ICE vehicle. It's crazy. Like, there's no maintenance. No maintenance. I've had an EV for 10 years now. I've changed the tires.
That's it.
There's no oil changes, no transmission. Like, it's crazy. So finally, just like you said, I mean, it's now become like an economically prudent decision to go electric, to change your vehicle because of purely economic reasons. They're not even considering all of these other things we've just been talking about, taking advantage of these grid side kind of bidirectional stuff. This is just owning an EV, paying for it, especially charging at home, owning an EV. Your cost of ownership is so much lower than any other vehicle. So,
and I mean, there's the other side of this, right? That this go totally like user experience. Like, I'm an old gearhead. I love like fast cars and motorcycles and stuff. I grew up with that stuff. And we bought the BMW i3. I swear to you, the reason I was so supportive, my wife wanted it. She was very much like early adopter, green tech, like, she just environmentalist, kind of viewpoint on things. And I drove that little i3, and it was like a go-kart, dude. It was the fastest, like, best handling thing I've ever driven. I was like, this is so much fun. We're buying, like, you gotta buy it. This is the funnest thing to drive ever. It was like purely like that. I'm like, yeah, I love all the other reasons, but like, dude, this thing's amazing to drive.
I think it's so funny thinking about Derek ripping around Santa Cruz in like an i3 because you're just like sitting there just cruising.
I still think that might be my. I mean,
Yeah,
the Model Y performance is like a freak show car. It's like, Lamborghini performance and acceleration and handling and stuff. But that i3, because it was so small and somehow had like even a lower center of gravity, it felt like driving a go-kart. It was like the most fun.
It was a fun car. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think people look at like just we're living through this really interesting moment, and I think for everybody listening, like this is meant to be exciting. This isn't meant to be panic. This is opportunity.
Yeah.
Imagine living back through the Industrial Revolution when just like everything was starting to just happen, like the rapid change and a complete change of how we live our lives. Like that is what's happening, and change is inevitable. I mean, the world is always changing, the universe is always changing. So the more we just kind of embrace the change and try to navigate it in the best way we can, the more exciting it can be. And so I always encourage everybody to like look at this electrification side not as a you need to or else. Instead it's you get to, and we have the opportunity to. Like that's what we're faced with here.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
I just saw Facebook's post. I have a buddy who's even more of a hot rod guy than I am. Like he's like crazy car show kind of like hot rods, and he took his new Escalade in for like a warranty service thing or whatever, and they loaned him the new electric Hummer. He's like, this thing's 1,000 horsepower, blah blah blah. He's like, I think they're trying to hook me. And he obviously was super blown away by the performance of the electric Hummer. And so I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is it's okay to go look at an EV just because it's a cool thing to own. Like that's okay. Like you don't have to be on understand the entirety of what we're talking about around decentralized energy and what that means to the world. It's okay to go get what is a cooler car. How often do you get 1,000 horsepower car that's silent, that's off-road capable? Like what? So, I think it's just interesting that we are talking about a paradigm shift that has so many different touch points for people. And
really,
and to your point, Steve, like there's no reason to be mad at it or to fight it or to think it's got something to do with politics or whatever. Just
no. And I think everybody's, if there's anything that's kind of like right now, like in the zeitgeist of it's just like, everything's so expensive. Everything's so expensive. Gasoline prices are constantly going up. And like, it's like, you have a choice now. Like you do. You don't have to deal with gasoline prices always going up and that have to do with global wars and geopolitics. You can actually now go get a car and charge it at your house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because it reminds me though, Steve, before we go, I remember having a flip phone and my buddy got the first iPhone. And I remember thinking, wait, you can't feel the buttons like when you push them? Like you can, like, how do you keep from like accidentally pushing things? I'm like, that seems stupid. I was in love with the flip phone. And I love my little Motorola Razr or whatever that thing was.
I thought BlackBerry was going to win. Honestly, right? I wasn't as much on the iPhone train when it first came out. I was kind of like these glass screens. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is that look at how ubiquitous, whether it's the iPhone or just the flat screen, screen model that we now call a phone. It took a minute for people to get that. And now it's like you couldn't pry them out of people's hands. I mean, like nobody's giving up their phone and they all look a little bit like this. You know what I mean? And so I guess all I'm trying to say is that's what's occurring, guys, with transportation and vehicles. And it's happening right here, right now. And just know that that's what's happening. It's like, it's just a matter of time till you see how much better it is.
And just one final note to car designers and manufacturers. This is an opportunity to make beautiful cars again. So please make beautiful cars. Dude. Like, let's get rid of the box, ugly, just utility type of, like, make cool cars again. Yeah. Like, make them inspiring.
Go look at the Scout. Like, I'm a 4-wheel drive guy. Like, I like
Scout's
those
sick.
kind of cars.
EV Scout.
The new EV Scout is like the best looking car in the world to me.
Mm-hmm. It's sick.
And
there's
like,
so
yeah,
many
you check
choices.
out if you were a truck driver, those little trucks, if you're into the little trucks, the Slate,
Slate.
sick.
he's like super
But-
customizable. Just
And then how many people don't love the look of a Ford F-150? The Lightning is just insane. And then now we're seeing beautiful designs. One of our teammates here at Mint just got the new Honda
the
Pilot
Prologue.
Prologue EV. Gorgeous. Like you want just a car, like a useful, beautiful car. Good looking car, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Derek, Rob, thank you. Till next time.
Till next
Power
time.
to the people.
Energy is inherently a part of everything we do in our lives, but one of the least understood things.
I can see a future where there is limitless and free energy. And that's a pretty beautiful world to live in.